Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Camille, and everyone at home. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of October 25th. And Rick has reminded us that Wednesday of next week is Halloween. So with all this new equipment and all this new recording equipment, we're wondering what exactly may be appearing on the screen. But Rick, if you could zoom in on Dave Ramsey's socks, if you could get a close-up of the Halloween socks that Dave has on this evening. We can't let that go without being noticed. So, oh, there you go. There you go. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's the trick portion of this evening's agenda. So thank you everyone for joining us. And the first item on our agenda this evening is Aaron School of Dance license agreement.
Mr. Chairman, as you recall, back in August, the board voted the new license agreement for Erin's dance studio and agreed to keep the rent flat because of her concern about her enrollments. Well, her enrollments are fewer than she had hoped even back in August, and she is now requesting a reduction in her rent, not just a flat line, but a reduction to $1,000 a month based on the decline in enrollment.
And the information that we received has been reviewed by you, been reviewed by Carl, and do you believe it's in keeping with...
We certainly would support
the request. And it is in line with the other tenants, not tenants, but license holders in the building.
Well, it's not in line with because it's actually a reduction, but the declining enrollments support that.
Any questions, Mrs. Hunter, Mr. Spriggs?
I just have a question. Does this also get reviewed by CMAC?
No.
Or not? Just by
This
you
is
and Carl?
administrative.
Okay.
And if you are in agreement with it, Robin, do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, I certainly have concerns about the viability of Miss Aaron's dance studio. Certainly, I do not have an issue reducing her rent, to try and help her bridge the gap for this year. I would hope that prior to renewing this agreement next year, maybe we could have a conversation with her about the viability of her business and her being able to continue to provide the service. I'm wondering if maybe there could be synergies between Park and Rec and her. Maybe they could help her with enrollments. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, but I certainly support reducing her rent for the next, is it 12 months she's asking for?
For this license period.
Right, for this license period.
Then I would accept a motion to approve the reduction as requested.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Selectmen's update, the town administrator search. Would you like to begin that process?
Well, I think we
Is-
have the
Is this one?
MMA annual trade show prior to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, we went right past the second item, I apologize. Massachusetts Municipal Annual Meeting, the MMA trade show. We discussed that briefly at our last meeting, January 19th, and we will all, I'm assuming, be in attendance. The board.
Just to let Mrs. Shillo know about your availability.
Mr. Schiller, we know that.
know.
Okay,
don't
'cause I need to
I'll
check
sign
my
it,
calendar.
yeah.
Okay.
So actually, our annual, although it runs Thursday the 17th, Friday the 18th, and Saturday the 19th, our Board of Selectmen annual lunch that we have at the trade show takes place on Friday the 18th.
And we typically only attend the
Friday.
activities on Friday. In the past, in some years, I have attended the banquet dinner.
I believe,
But
yeah.
I have not attended the second day of events.
My first year, I attended a second day workshop for new selectmen and for town administrators, which was, I found to be very helpful. But there is a lot, there's a lot there. There's a lot to pick and choose from. So Mona, we will
Let me know.
let you know
Yes, and I'll register.
of our availability.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can put mine in
Okay,
for that Friday.
all right.
We look forward to it. It's generally a good event. So thank you for that. So the next item with regards to this evening's agenda, the selectmen updates, the town administrator search. We notified everyone and we discussed at our last meeting that we've begun the process. Mrs. Hunter is the representative of the Board of Selectmen to the screening committee. The screening committee is chaired by Mrs. Hoffman. Our secretary for the screening committee is former Selectman Carol Lisbon. And we thank all the members who are serving on the screening committee, together with Dick Kobayashi and the Carroll Center. Collins Center. Putting things ahead of myself for our evening license agreements. Collins Center at the University of Massachusetts, who's running the search process for us. Is there anything you would like to add, Mrs. Hunter?
So I think from a process standpoint, we continue to work on the profile of Mr. Kobayashi. He has held meetings with the staff as well as with the selectmen, which we invited all chairs to the various committees. He took that input and converted it into a first draft of a profile. Now, the profile is supposed to be representative of the town of Dover, as well as it's a marketing tool. It provides an overview of the town administrator job, and also the town of Dover and the kind of candidate we're looking for, as well as the challenges that we believe this candidate will face over the near term. Mr. Kobayashi did a very good job pulling together all the comments. He then sent it to each of the selectmen and met with us separately. We gave him our feedback and we're waiting for the next turn of the document. The most important part of the document also includes a job description, and we had a meeting yesterday evening with Mr. Kobayashi here, talked about the job description. We need to make sure that the job description and the profile are consistent. And so we had a really good discussion, and again, Mr. Kobayashi is tasked with the job of taking that discussion and trying to condense all the feedback into a document. And he said he would get something back to us tomorrow, and then we will continue to go through this iterative process. We do have a meeting set up for the end of November with the search committee. In that meeting, I believe Mary Flanders from the Collins Center will be in attendance, and she'll be educating the committee on questions that you can ask legally, questions that you can't ask. She will go into more detail on their screening process when resumes come in and the profiles that they'll pull together on particular candidates. So I think that will be more of a working meeting to give the screening committee the tools that will be necessary when we're ready to go through the various profiles that are pulled together. So I
So-
look forward to that.
So Robin, the intervening time between now and the end of November is going to be used to polish up the documents, the marketing documents,
Right,
and then
right.
go out and
we-
actually
right.
conduct a search.
Exactly, exactly. And educate the screening committee, because it's important. We're very fortunate that within the screening committee, we have Mary Kerrigan, who is a senior HR professional, so I think having her on the committee is really helpful. We have Dixon Smith, who's a professional recruiter, so the two of them have a lot of knowledge professional knowledge on searches, which will be really helpful to the committee. In the meeting, they had a lot of really good points that Mr. Kobayashi has incorporated in the profiles.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. The update on the Carroll Community Center, the Board of Selectmen last week announced the 7 members of the Carroll Community Center Committee. We also announced last week that we would be forming, in addition to that committee, a group of stakeholders, an active, participating, collaborative group of stakeholders to build a consensus within the town with all of the people within the town that utilize the community center. For the Board of Selectmen, Bob Springett will be the liaison, will represent the board on the committee. Ford Spalding is going to chair the committee, former Selectman Ford Spalding. Terry Sobieski,
Sobolewski, I believe.
Sobolewski.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Terry, we apologize. Aaron Rodat Salva, Rich Forte, Amy Collins, and Lauren Brodsky are the 7 members of the town who are making up the committee, the Carroll Community Committee. Would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I'd just say that when we envisioned the committee, we sort of broke it into 2 roles. So 1 committee, 2 roles, and obviously there's the 7 people who we appointed on our October 19th meeting, and they will form the core analytical team. And then the second contingent of the project team is we refer to them as stakeholders. And the stakeholder group will be representatives from like town departments, facility users, people like teens who we don't believe use the facility a lot, and then all other interested parties, so that we do get a broad representation of views. The stakeholder role is, to me, it's really the most important role. In order to build town consensus, we have to continually understand sort of the mood of the town. So the stakeholder is tasked with being an advocate, not of their constituency, but of the project, and intermediaries between the project team and their constituencies, so we can get our information out, we can hear what the town's residents think, and we can get feedback. So as we go through this analytical process and prepare, hopefully a successful presentation at a town meeting in 2019, that we will be in sync with what residents want and expect. We've worked very hard to make sure we have a diverse team, a talented team, a skills-based team, and we have, from the various people that we've spoken to, we have good representation coming in. So I have really high hopes that this is going to be successful, and with a little luck, it might even be a little fun.
We will have a very diverse group of stakeholders. We've spent a lot of time with the leadership of the schools. We've identified seniors, senior class representative from Dover Sherburne High School. So the stakeholder group will be Aaron Hadar. Aaron is a senior, lives in Dover on Main Street. I spent 2.5 hours with the Council on Aging on Monday, and a little bit of time on Sunday as well at the Friends of the Council on Aging. And both Camille, Joanne, we've reached out to both of you. Your input has been invaluable. We're hoping that you will continue to be supportive of what we're doing. We rely heavily upon stakeholders and the people like you and the leadership that you've shown to your committee, to your constituents. We're going to leverage that, and we're going to look to you for guidance on a lot of these items. So it was a very lively 2.5 hour conversation on Monday. Ford Spalding and I met and spoke until everybody was done. Every question was asked, and there were a lot of questions, and it was a lot of very good conversation. So the community center was a big part of it, but the community center wasn't the only part specifically of the Council on Aging. So I know we're focused on the community center update at the moment, but thank you both for that. And Bob, thank you for the leadership of this.
Say, John, I have one thing. In talking with people about the project, there was this undercurrent of concern and misunderstanding about Article 15 that was amended at last May's town meeting. So I'm going to try to do a very brief recap of what I think happened and where I think we are, and hope to dispel some of the misunderstanding. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Hunter to keep me on the straight and narrow, since I think you were a little bit more involved at that point in time than I. So from my perspective, the essence of the amendment to Article 15 was to find a way to provide money to continue to do work on Carroll, on the Carroll renovation idea. The amendment, as it was proposed, was restricted to the language of the original Article 15, which talked only about renovating Carroll. So the money that was appropriated or was voted at last May's meeting can only be used to do studies of the renovation work required at Carroll. The project, on the other hand, is not so restricted. So the project is going to look at fully costing a complete renovation of Carroll, plus looking at building a new facility. The catch-22 here is that the work analyzing a new facility cannot use any of the money that was appropriated at town meeting. So we have to do that kind of on the cheap. But nevertheless, I think that we should be able to do both. Do a full costing study of the Carroll renovation, provide estimated information on new facilities, or at least sufficient to make reasonable people in the town give them a choice and a vote. And we will not use money appropriated under Article 15 for any of the new facility research.
So I think you did a great job, Bob. I just wanted to say that, right before town meeting came, it became obvious that there was the potential that both articles might fail. And the rationale or the impetus or the catalyst for the amendment on the floor was to keep alive the momentum that existed at the time. We felt that the worst thing in the world would be just to put it on the back burner once again, because there was momentum as we embarked upon town meeting. And there was positive and negative momentum, but there was momentum. And there also was a lot of energy from newer citizens in Dover that didn't have the baggage of 18 years ago when the project failed. And that was the catalyst for bringing this this article or motion, but it was very, very restricted because of the way the warrant article was written. And, you know, I think the approach that Bob has spearheaded, you know, with the support of John and myself, getting broad-based consensus is really the only way we'll ever be able to understand whether or not the desire of the town is to actually do something with that building. Because it is a community center. It's not the nicest building, but it is a community center. So the focus really has to be on the programs that are coming out of there and the utilization, and not a building for Park and Rec or a building for C of A or a building for the town. It's for the community at large. And I feel cautiously optimistic that we will have fun and it will be a positive outcome in the end.
I'd like to add one more thing, and thank you both. That's a lot of ground to have covered in 4 or 5 minutes. But there's one other thing that I think deserves recognition with regards to the misconception that Bob alluded to, and that is of the Carroll Management Study Committee, CMAC, the management group that was appointed by the Board of Selectmen. That group has not been disbanded. That group has not gone away.
They're a stakeholder.
They're a stakeholder. They're a big stakeholder. And as we discussed at length, and Matt Schmidt and I spoke about it in the meeting, and Matt's been a big part of that committee, we're going to rely heavily upon that institutional knowledge. Kathy Weld, Jack Donahue, the members of that committee, the hours that they have put in have been invaluable, and we will rely heavily upon
And recognized.
And recognized, thank
Yeah.
you, yeah, and recognized. So back to your comment, Bob, about, and your observation about misconceptions that have been brought to our attention, that absolutely is one of them, and one that we want to make certain that the people of Dover understand. That group has not gone away, and that group will be a part of this process going forward. So, thank you.
And who's our rep?
You are our rep, as a matter of fact. Do we tell him that? Yeah, as a matter of fact. So thank you, Mr. Spring.
You're welcome.
For being late to that meeting. Camille.
I have a question to Bob. Who's studying how to use the
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Who is in the study, your study of using the $220,000? Is that in the second group that you were talking about?
Who is?
Who's studying how to use the money that was?
Oh, that would be up to the committee chair. of the
Yeah.
committee, how the money is allocated. And part of the charges that, going all the way back, was that we have to be, we're going to rely on Dave as well. Be really careful about how that money is allocated. And I think I mentioned to you guys when I spoke with you yesterday that, right now we've engaged a firm to do a capital needs assessment. So that money is clearly dedicated, looking at the Carroll facility. And so we want to make sure that all the money that we spend passes muster.
Camille,
As a former banker, you need to be and a lawyer, you need to be really careful with how you use money.
the committee will act just like every other committee. They will have the ability to ask for appropriations of money that's available. And so the appropriation process will be followed as we did with On-Site Insight, the group that we have hired to do
Right through the procurement
right
process.
through the procurement process. So it's going to be as if it was any other department under our jurisdiction.
But, the first step is there's so much information that's already out there, so the committee is going to go through that information, reread the reports that Don Mills has prepared for the town, that has been updated for the town, because it's important. The first step is to understand the baseline.
No, absolutely right.
and
That's
the needs.
exactly right.
So I think a lot of the initial work really is going to be the committee and not going to cost any money. It's talking to stakeholders, it's understanding, and then putting forward a plan and looking at that plan and saying, okay, well, what in order to accomplish these tasks, where do we need to bring in professionals to assist us with those? Because there's so much good information that's already been done. You know, why spend money redoing good work? It's understanding what we have and then what we need.
So now I have another thing to add. Now, I don't know if I covered this, but part of the stakeholder group will be an experts group. We've had several people with architectural expertise, building expertise, financial expertise, volunteer as well. So so the stakeholder group will include a subset of residents who have volunteered their time and skills to help us go through this process. So it's really gonna be pretty cool.
It's just not going to happen overnight.
No, it's not gonna happen overnight.
No, and I will remind everyone, the committee and our board will not be constrained by town meeting guideline, by town meeting, by our current town meeting dates. This will be a separate town meeting. So thank you both.
That's a good 5 minutes.
And Mr. Ramsey, if and when there is a ribbon cutting of any kind, I'm not making any promises.
I look younger than I am, you know.
An invite will be in the mail, so.
Unless, of course, you're down in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
But even then, you
Send
know,
your representative. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffries will send a jet.
Exactly. The company
Oh,
jet.
yeah. But if on the boat, you have to crew.
I can follow orders.
The rail trail. So we reported at our last meeting that the rail trail process right now, our town council, Stephen Anderson, has been negotiating with the MBTA's outside counsel regarding the insurance process and an insurance package that will allow and indemnify the town to conduct the business that the town needs to conduct in the site planning process. We have gone back and forth with our outside counsel, with the outside counsel of the MBTA. We have talked to our insurance representative today. Our outside counsel, Stephen Anderson, late today sent us an email delineating the various items that he has been in discussion with. He also sent us, right before we came into our meeting this evening, another email announcing that the reduction of the rate that the insurance will cost the town, specifically the Friends of the Rail Trail, would be significantly less than we had anticipated, which is very good news for us, very good news for the rail trail. It also will allow the Friends of the Rail Trail to pay for an insurance premium, and in the event the town cannot go forward or the town decides they cannot go forward, the majority of that insurance premium that's required to be paid by the Friends would be reimbursed to the Friends. So it significantly reduces their burden, and it significantly increases the ability for us to move forward. So we have not got that finalized. The board has not voted on that. We haven't seen the actual language, and we would certainly ask Mrs. Hunter to meet with the Friends to be able to discuss and come back to us with a proposal or a conversation with the results of the conversation with the Friends of the Rail Trail.
So just a little bit of a clarification. So we had always envisioned having a lease that was ready to execute and then a license agreement that would allow us to go onto the rail trail or the rail bed to continue with our due diligence process. We hit a hiccup with the license agreement because one of the points that the MBTA was insisting upon in the license agreement was that if any environmental contamination were to be found, it would be the responsibility of the town to clean that up, and we all know the remediation is a rail trail. that's the remediation for this kind of contamination. So the issue was, we had envisioned being able to go onto the rail trail, do the due diligence. We're not doing any testing, we're not doing any digging. We're basically walking around it, making sure that the site can hold bridges where it needs to hold bridges, and also doing more tidal investigation. So that meant that you couldn't really use the license agreement because without having an insurance policy, and actually there's certain protections that you get in municipal law that you only get having entered into a lease. So the issue was with the MBT, then the license agreement became a little bit problematic because we couldn't protect the town we couldn't completely protect the town under that agreement, whereas we could under a lease. But the issue was we, the selectmen, don't have the authorization to enter into a lease unless the Friends pay for the rail trail. So we're a little bit in a catch-22. So what we've sent to the MBTA is a markup of the license agreement in which we can purchase insurance, which will cover us, as Mr. Jeffries described. And then also we said to them, well, hey, what about we'd be willing to execute the lease so long as if we execute the lease, if the Friends don't raise money or if something comes up in the diligence process, we can give you back the lease. And that's what we're waiting to hear back from the MBTA. So there is a path forward. It's not the path forward that we had anticipated. As with all contracts I've ever done in my life, there are always little deviations to the process. We also do have a meeting tomorrow during the day someday with Beals and Thomas. The Friends had specific questions about the cost estimates that they had put together. We had asked them to give us the questions ahead of time so that we could look at them and prepare for the meeting to make the meeting efficient. And they did that, and I believe we will have a productive meeting tomorrow. But I'm sure more questions will come out of the meeting because that's just the nature of the beast. So we're hoping that in the near future we'll be able to have a solution that we can vote upon to move this forward.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one question for Mrs. Hunter. Will I get invited to that ribbon cutting also?
You can be handed a shovel at that.
Bring your walking shoes.
I was gonna say, just to add one other point to this.
A yellow ribbon with the big scissors.
Big scissors on a horse. We, in addition to the Friends of the Rail Trail, we have been talking to the equestrian community at length. We have been keeping Sarah and Lisa and Lisa, who's president of the Hunt Club. We have met with them on at least 3 occasions, keeping them up to date with all of these twists and turns, as Mrs. Hunter and I both have described. This process has been incredibly complicated because of the fact that we segmented this lease, segmented the rail trail in our attempt to give every group in the town of Dover what they wanted in this. So it's been a compromise, it's been an effort, it has been a continuous effort by us to provide to the town of Dover what we've been charged to do, and that's a lease that everybody can agree upon, which we will do. So thank you for that.
Mr. Ramsey will get.
Which Mr. Ramsey will be invited to participate in.
That's a more casual affair,
Yeah.
because we'll walk it.
Exactly.
There may be,
Right, we can provide you with a horse.
You know.
there may or may not be a hot dog stand.
Our next item of business is to approve early closing for the townhouse the day before Thanksgiving, and I am going to propose that the townhouse be closed on noon the day before Thanksgiving, as is the tradition. I would ask for a second to that.
I would second that.
Okay, we're good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. other items of business and special liquor licenses. So, and this will be where I apologize for the Collins Center being referred to as the Carroll Center, because I'm sorry, I did
This
that
is the
backwards.
Connors.
Connors, Carroll, good, miss.
It's Connors,
Carol,
Carol,
Collins.
3 Cs, CCC.
Miss Bessie, diction, 5th grade. Thank you, Mrs. Hunter. So on October 25th, retroactive, Boston College,
It's tonight.
tonight, once again, not invited, at the Connors Center at Boston College. October 28th, the Sanderson Wedding at the Connors Center. October 31st, Symposium Dinner at the Connors Center. And November 3rd, the Indian Cultural Function at the Carroll Community Center. November 13th, Boston College Connors Center Facilities Reception. November 14th, Boston College Management at the Connors Center. Would
I
we
make a
accept a
motion.
motion for approval of the special one-day liquor licenses?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I would also remind everyone that last week we approved the Dover Moms Association, who will also have an advocate and a stakeholder in our community. The Dover Moms are meeting this evening at the community cycling at the Carroll Center.
And was there a special liquor license for that?
There was. We approved it last week. And we got tickets
Who's
for
the
that.
designated cycler?
Well, I was the designated workout person this morning, getting tortured by Linda Barnes at the community cycling. Thank you, Linda. I hope you're watching at home. Quickly, just want to again thank, with regards to these special events, thank Maureen Dilge and Linda Pettit for the Friends of the Council on Aging event that happened last Sunday. Really well attended, very, very well done. I am happy to report that I was the successful bidder in one of the silent auctions, which will provide wine at some point in time, which we may have to talk about after a meeting, but that was a great event. There was also the DSEF on Saturday of last week. DSEF, the Dover Sherburne Education Fund, held its annual gala at Silverwood Farm in Sherburne. Spectacular event, 150 people attended. Special thanks to Christina Grace and Dan Cook, the co-presidents of the Dover Sherburne Education Fund, who did a fabulous job. DSEF has raised over $3.5 million in the past 15 years for special items at the school, middle school, Chickering, and outside the schools. The Council on Aging coffee we mentioned, Ford Spalding and I attended on Monday. Halloween, by the way, is next Wednesday. Just for all of you watching at home, I want to make sure Dave Sox have received the proper notice. And then finally, last evening after our meeting, we attended across the street the voter referendum question that was monitored by Jim Rapetti, our town moderator, Carol Lisbon, and Grant Stevens for the Democratic parties and the Republican parties. Both worked very, very hard at informing the voters. Very well attended, lots of students in attendance, and the referendum items were covered in detail. So thank you all for your hard work, your participation, and for the commitment to the community.
And I just make one note, shout out to the Dover Fire Department. On Sunday, they had a wonderful bash, and it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of little kids, I felt as though I needed one, running around with fire hats. They were kind enough to provide candy as well, and I have identified our newest head EMT, a young little girl who was clearly in charge of that new rescue vehicle that goes in the woods. I introduced her to the chief.
How old
It
is
was
that
a
little girl?
lot of fun. I have no idea. She was very cute. She was in charge. And that vehicle was quite popular with the kids.
Yeah, it was a good purchase then.
At one point, I just looked at Mr. Spalding and said, how many kids do you think you can fit in that vehicle? Because they were all on top of each other. But they did a wonderful job, and it was so well attended. Right. Very, very fun. A lot of food, donuts, pasta.
Well, Chief McGowan and Chief Hughes both deserve special
I
thanks.
think it's just the fire department.
Is it?
I think it is just
Yeah,
the
it's just the
fire.
fire department.
Police one was allowed.
Right, because they have the better toys. It was fun, you know, they did such a great job. They had the kids in the ambulance, and they had a stethoscope, and they had one lying on the stretcher, and it was a very, very nice event. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. Lots to do, lots of happenings here in Dover in the fall, so thank you all. We have to approve the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting on October 15th, which we have all received a copy of. If there are no amendments or adjustments, accept a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Mrs. DeShow, once again. Can we also comment that Mr. Springett took notes of our selectmen's meetings, submitted them at our meeting yesterday, and did an outstanding job, while Mrs. Hunter was our scribe.
I've retired.
I notice you only wear that at our meetings, though. I mean, outside
Have you
the
figured
meetings,
that
I
out
don't
yet?
think you wear that.
It works really well for dinner prep. I mean, I think I may never take it off.
Yeah, she may never take minutes again.
The only place it's not fun is work, because it's hard to type with 5 fingers and a thumb.
We've covered our meetings, we've covered the citizens. Camille, Joanne, is there anything you'd like to add? Thank you very much for your attendance. Mr. Ramsey, any other items of
Nothing
business?
further, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Schilling, and Mrs. Hunter? or
I'll make a
Mr.
motion
Springer?
to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone at home. Reminder that next Wednesday is Halloween. Please be safe and watch out for all of our little ghosts and goblins. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everyone.
What's today, tomorrow?